describe for me the moment, because I know you were just at Universal Studios in Orlando. Describe for me the moment when you walked in through Diagon Alley and just everything opens up and the shops are all there and you see Gringotts. If you can put that, feeling into words, what is that for you?
I don't know if I can. I started crying immediately.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Finally, we have a new episode of For Whom the Bell Tolls. This is episode number 29. I am fired up today. So it's been, I want to say, since maybe August that we filmed a For Whom the Bell Tolls. And I asked you guys in a poll, do you like them live? Do you want to try doing them pre-recorded? Do you care either way? And actually, most people said they didn't care either way. But what came in second place, shockingly to me, was the pre-recorded video. And boy, do I have a guest here for you today. This is somebody that I've been familiar with for probably, I want to say, about a year and a half since his channel started. And to be totally frank, we are 11 months late with this For Whom the Bell Tolls episode, because I asked our guest, Jake from Nerd Level Rising, last February if he wanted to come on the show. And if memory serves, and at my age, it doesn't always serve, but I think it does in this case, Jake had Valentine's Day plans or something coming up right around the second week of February. So, in typical Brian fashion, I said, no, hey, no problem. We'll do it in a couple of weeks. 11 months later, Jake from Nerd Level Rising, BookTube extraordinaire, welcome to the show. Can't believe we're on episode 29. How are you today, my friend?
Crazy. I am great. Let me just say before we jump into anything else, thank you so much for having me. This is super cool for me. When I started my channel, I've been watching BookTube for a long time, right? And there was a handful of these shows that I was like, man, if I ever get to do these, like these are the ones I want to really be able to do. And it was a short list, and For Whom the Bell Tolls was definitely on there. So this is a very cool moment for me.
Oh, that's excellent. And like I said, this is long overdue, but maybe for the better, because, in the last 11 months, you've grown as a booktuber, you've grown as a reader, your tastes have expanded. You probably have more to say today than you did a year ago or 11 months ago. So you know what? Destiny is what it is. This is, as I mentioned, a pre-recorded video. So if you have questions for Jake, for sure, leave them in the comments below. Let me know also if you like this format where you can kind of check this show out on your own schedule rather than to have to tune in to the exact live, because I know we do get quite a few people from all over the world and the time zones are just kind of crazy. Maybe this will work out. We'll kind of see. Maybe some of you guys will just listen to this. You don't have to look at my mug for an hour. All right. Well, as you guys know, I prepare. I've got questions today. Jake's got answers today. So we're going to start off at the very, very beginning, and we're going to kind of move our way through today. But Jake, when did you first realize you were a reader of science fiction and fantasy?
Ooh. Wow. I got to really dig back in the brain here. That's probably, in grade school, we did the, what grade must that have been? I don't know, second, third, fourth grade, something like that. Where they did, I can't remember what it was called, but there was this, like, I think this is really common in a lot of schools where you read books off the list and you take a little quiz and you get points for it. And then like they add up your points and they have like a leaderboard or whatever. I remember doing that, and I remember doing a lot of the Narnia books and liking those, and just kind of randomly picking up some things. We used to go to the library a lot around that same time.
Okay.
And picking up I picked up like book 8 of the Drist books or something and just started it because I didn't know.
Sure.
And random things like that. And I read his Dark Materials way too early. I didn't get it, but I still had fun. But I think when I really got sucked in was when I found Harry Potter. I think that was the big thing.
Were you kind of the right age when Harry Potter was coming out, that you were sort of in that age demographic to kind of follow along his journey?
Yeah, I think I was actually just thinking about this because I just got back from a trip to Universal.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking, I was like, wow, has it been 25 years since that first movie came out? That's weird. And I feel old
Isn't
because I
it?
saw that in the theater. Um, but I would have been 8 or something like that when that first movie came out.
Basically
Um,
about the same age that Harry was
yeah.
when Hagrid went to pick him up at the house.
Yep. Pretty close. So it was definitely the right age, and I got to grow up with the books and with the movies and
Oh, that's
with
just
the
so
actors,
incredible.
and it was cool.
That's so incredible. Folks, I don't know if you can tell, I'm a couple years older than Jake. I was not 8 years old when Harry Potter came out, but I always was still waiting anyway for the letter to show up from Hogwarts. So you started really early. That were your parents readers? Did you have reading friends or your classmates readers? Did this just sort of kind of come of interest to you? What sparked that?
Yeah, I think it was my parents mostly. My dad is not a reader at all, but he used to read to me and my brother when we were
Okay,
little, like before
cool.
bed. And it started out as just, whatever fun random kids books, but then he did the series of unfortunate events for us, and that was really fun. That's like one of my it's a very good memory for
That's
me being
awesome.
little. And then my mom read a lot though. She didn't really read much fantasy. It was more she was a big Stephen King fan. Um, what are those? Is it Ivanovich, Janet Ivanovich, something like that? It's all
I'm
like
not sure.
they're like numbers, like 1 for the something, 2 for the something is all the
Okay,
books. Anyway, so she read a lot of those. I think it was a lot of like crime thriller kind of stuff and mysteries and some horror. And funny enough, I got her to read Mistborn years ago. She tried Wheel of Time and bounced off of it, but that's okay.
sure. Yeah.
She's tried a handful of things, but yeah, she always had a book, and I think that was a big influence for me.
That's very cool. I remember when I started the Malazan journey, my mom asked me, so you're reading this Gardens of the Moon. Do you think I'd like it? I'm like, absolutely not.
No.
No, you would not like it, Mom. Well, that's incredible. And I want to just kind of touch base on something that you just mentioned because I know I'll forget. But describe for me the moment, because I know you were just at Universal Studios in Orlando. Describe for me the moment when you walked in through Diagon Alley and just everything opens up and the shops are all there and you see Gringotts. If you can put that, feeling into words, what is that for you?
I don't know if I can. I started crying immediately.
Did you?
I did. It was the first of 3 times that I cried. Um,
Awesome.
it was that. It was we went to Diagon Alley first, and then took the Hogwarts Express over to Hogsmeade. So
Yeah.
when I got on the train, that was the second time,
Yeah.
and then going through Hogsmeade, and I saw the castle, and that was the third time.
Yeah.
So, but it was just such an overwhelming, like, it's real,
It
and
is.
it was. I always have that quote in my head. I can't even remember if it's in the books, but it's in the last movie when Dumbledore says to Harry, uh, Harry asks him, "Is this all happening inside my head, or is this real?" He says, "Of course it's happening inside your head, but why would that mean that it's not real?" And I
Yeah.
always think of that, and I got there and I was just like, "Dude, like this is I can't." I still right now I have chills just thinking about
I
it.
do too, and it's been years since I've been there. My
Yeah,
sister and my brother-in-law were living in Florida for some time, and it was a couple hours drive, but it's like their happy place where, having a bad day, okay, let's go to Universal because it's not inexpensive to go. But when you talk about, like you said, you're sitting here today and you're still getting chills thinking about when that world opened up to you. They did such a phenomenal job of recreating not only the movies, but the books, and just you feel like you're there. I mean,
you really do. You really do. And apparently, they probably have a bunch of new stuff since you went, because I hear some of this is really new, like their new Epic Universe, like the third park that's
yeah,
new.
I've not been
They
there.
they have the Ministry of Magic that you can go into, and
Oh,
like when you go in, you walk through the Flu Network, and the green smoke puffs up right when you walk through. It's the coolest
oh
thing.
my God. See,
Awesome.
now I got to go back to Orlando. Thank you. Thank you. Let me go back to where we were, but I didn't want to forget that piece because I knew when I walked through that myself, I said, God, anybody I know that ever goes there, I have to ask them what their first thought was when that whole thing spreads open. You're like, oh my God, this
Yeah,
is like this. I'm really here. Do
yeah.
you remember? And maybe it is Harry Potter, but do you remember the book that flipped the switch for you and made it more than just a hobby?
Yes, it actually was not Harry Potter. It was Aragon,
Okay.
because that was the first book that I picked out for myself. That I went to the school library. I think I was in 5th grade, And I was walking through and I saw that dragon on the cover and I was just like, that looks cool. And I read the back and there's like elves and whatever, like sweet.
Sure.
And so I tried it and I loved it. And I have the nice broken binding editions. I want to reread it at some point.
Very cool. I was going to
But
ask you, so when you checked that book out, did you ever check it out again? Or was it a one and done?
it was, I'm trying to remember. I think I was reading it. The movie came out while I was reading it. And at the time, I liked the movie a lot. Now, if I saw it again as an adult, I don't know if I would or not. But it was fun. And then I finished it and just went straight through, read the rest of the series as they were coming out. I don't think the last book was out yet at the time, but I loved them. And I think I've read the first 2 books twice. I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay.
I think I read them and then I went back and reread them when the rest of the series was out. I think that's what I did.
Very cool. I asked because when I was in elementary school at that age, in our library, there really wasn't much of a fantasy section at all. There was a handful of books, and I remember one of them was called The Big Joke Game. And the reason why I ask if you checked it out more than once is I checked that book out all the time. And at the time, on the inside thing, there was a little card that you would write your name on who checked it out. And every single name was me. So I was like, it's the only one reading this, but I couldn't get it. I couldn't get enough of it. So you're very deep into science fiction and fantasy now, but IRL, you're also pursuing a PhD. Let's talk about that for a second. What are you studying and how did you decide in that field in particular?
So what I'm studying is the easier answer. It is basically, how do I set up a workout program to maximize muscle growth? That's kind of the easiest way to say it. Some of that is like different variables at play, how many sets you're doing, how close to failure you train, those sorts of things. And then some of it, like what my dissertation is about, is this concept called autoregulation, which is basically like listening to your body and making adjustments based on how you feel.
Okay.
Trying to find out, are there better or worse ways to do that, essentially. So that's what I'm doing. How I fell into that is actually a funny story. I'll try to be as concise as I can with this.
No, just go ahead. This is just you and me talking. So
Yeah.
tell me the story.
So I was in high school. Our whole high school was kind of geared towards, it wasn't explicitly like this, but it kind of worked out this way. The girls were funneled towards nursing and the guys were funneled towards engineering. That's just how it went. And my dad was an engineer and I was like, I'm good at math and physics and whatever. So like, I guess I'm doing that. And I went then to community college right after I graduated and hated it. And like, I was good at it, but I hated it. And I was like, this isn't for me. Right. So I dropped out of school and I said, I'll go back once I figure out what I want to do. And then that was just working retail, 40 hours a week at Target, doing my thing. And I tried some other stuff in the meantime. I'd always been really into drawing and painting, and I was like, I'll be a tattooer. And then the deeper I got into that, the more it started to take the fun out of it. Once I started to like try to monetize a hobby, I was like, ugh, it's a bummer. So then I was like, maybe not that. And then in that time, I had sort of rediscovered lifting. And I was like, man, this is just, because I had done it some in high school, but then fell off of it for a few reasons. But I came back to it. Man, this is fun. Maybe I could do this. What if I be a personal trainer or something? So I got a personal training certification, and my immediate thought when I finished it was, that's it? That's all I have to know? That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, there's got to be a way to learn more about this stuff. And okay, there's degrees, whatever. So that was part of it, was just wanting to know more. And then the other part was, I knew just my personality type. I didn't want to be an in-person personal trainer because the scheduling, especially as a new personal trainer, the schedules are gnarly. You have 5 a.m. clients and you have 8 p.m. clients, and it's just, the burnout rate is incredibly high.
Interesting.
And so I was like, okay, there's got to be a better way. And this was around the time, it's very, very popular now. It was really popular then. This would have been 10 years ago. It was pretty popular. Now it's like crazy popular, but for people to do it online.
Sure.
And so I was like, I want to do that. And the way that most people would market that is social media. And I was like, why would anyone listen to me? I have 100 Instagram followers that are my friends from high school. And like, how am I supposed to get my name out there? And I was thinking through, I was like, okay, how can I stand out? How can I like have some respect from people and just have them give me a chance? I'll get a PhD. And
Why
so I
not?
just,
Just a
why
you
not?
know, just on an off weekend, I'll
Yeah.
go get myself a PhD.
Yeah. But look, mom, we did it. Right. So, luckily along the way, I found out that I actually do really love research and doing the whole academia thing. But it's just so funny that I started because of that reason. But here we are.
Interesting. So, side note, you had left college. Maybe the classes weren't for you. Were they taught by a gentleman named Dr. Philip Chase at all? Was
Um,
was was he one of the reasons why you left college, left
if
academia?
if he was there, I would have quit way sooner, man.
Oh, okay, good. I just just
Yeah.
just making sure. Okay, cool. What does a day in your academic life look like compared to a day in your reading life? Or do you
Ooh,
combine them?
that's interesting. Um, they're pretty mishmashed together. All of my days feel like a blur. I'm sure you can relate. Like there is never enough
Yeah,
time in the day,
yeah.
and you're just sprinting all the time. And you have to like purposely put in days to chill or have free time or whatever, right? But it's also fun to be doing that. So basically, I try to start every day. That's the first thing I do when I wake up is read a little bit because if I don't, I'm going to get too caught up in work stuff and it just won't happen.
Okay,
So that's usually how I try to start. If I can do every day like that, that's my preference.
okay.
Um, I'm usually like give myself an hour or two, something like that.
Are you
Just
a coffee person in the morning?
yeah, I'm doing less than I used to because I had some weird. They call it anxiety. I don't feel anxious all the time, but that's what the doctor told me. It just
Sure.
weird heart palpitations
Yeah,
that caffeine made it worse. So I
yeah.
was like, oh, I tried
The rea
decaf and it was better, but
the reason why I ask is because I know some of the books that you read, and they're not just jump out of bed with a foggy head from sleeping
yeah,
experiences. That's why I was like, this guy's got to be drinking some coffee to wake up in the morning because I know what you read. We'll get into that in a little
yeah,
bit, but
yeah.
requires some focus.
Some of it, yeah. Late, we've been doing Gene Wolfe lately, so that's
Oh
been
my
some
God.
coffee mornings for sure. But yeah, I try to start the day with that, and then it's like what's the thing we're chipping away at today, right? So, like right now during the school semesters, I'm on campus usually 2 or 3 days a week, and I go in and I usually try to either work or luckily our labs because of the research that we do, the lab is basically a gym.
Okay.
So if we don't have any subjects or anything, I can go lift in there, so that's done and out of the way.
Nice.
And then I teach a class and then come back. And then if we have research subjects, that's kind of what we're doing next. And that's either taking them through some sort of training session or doing the measurements. I do a lot of ultrasound measurements to look at muscle size.
Okay.
And so it's been a lot of that. And otherwise, if we don't have subjects, it's if there's a paper that we're working on writing, I'll try to work on some of that. And then there's general like just trying to learn like right now there is a roadblock with my dissertation study where the statistics are complicated and none of us know exactly how to do it, so I get to go learn how to do it. And the thing that I'm learning is that this topic, this method is much more complicated than people tend to think in the field, and almost nobody does it right, is what I'm learning. So that's like the thing that a lot of my time is going to right now. Or the last few months, it was a lot of job applications and trying to get a job, an academic job lined up for when I graduate and that sort of thing. So it's kind of a weird mishmash of all that stuff. And then I also do some like one-on-ones, still that online personal training stuff. So I'll
Sure.
have, communicating with clients and updating their programs and all that kind of stuff too.
Well, it's fascinating to me, especially because, like you said, it's not to take away from anybody who might be listening or watching this that's a personal trainer. It's a great job, it's a great career. But when you start talking about a PhD and measuring muscle mass with ultrasonic equipment, you're really setting up the next generation of personal trainers and people that get into that field with a whole new set of tools, I would suspect, than even you had 10 years ago when you embarked on that. And you're almost kind of on the cutting edge because, truth be known, I've known plenty of PhDs, but nobody that is focused in this, physical fitness section sector that you're doing. And I would suspect it's a pretty small percentage of people that do get a PhD, which is already a very tiny subsect of the population that even goes and gets an undergraduate.
Right.
It's got to be minuscule, the people
Yeah.
that are specializing in what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very rare, which also makes sense because like a lot of PhDs operate with like government funding to be able
Yeah.
to actually do their stuff, and the government doesn't care about muscle growth, right?
Sure.
They're going to fund other stuff as they
Yeah.
should.
Yeah.
So it's a harder sell for some people in that sense, or a lot of big universities don't want to do it because they can't get the grant money and that sort of thing. So you have to kind of search for the programs anyway, even if you do want to do it. That's part of why I'm in Florida. I don't like living in Florida, right? I'm here because of this program.
Right.
And so it's one of those things that, yeah, it's pretty rare, but like when you find the other people who do it, it's like you just immediately are like, okay, I
Sure.
like you, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Instant connection.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned, tattoo artistry. When people turn your channel on, they see a few things. They see a very heavily tattooed individual. They see the long hair. They see the bodybuilding, or they hear about the bodybuilding. Then they see shelves and shelves of fantasy and science fiction novels. Do you ever feel misunderstood?
You know what's funny? This is gonna sound really lame and egotistical. But like, you remember those commercials with the most interesting man in the world?
Absolutely, the Dos Equis guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, because it's those things, I'm randomly a huge like NBA fan. I have a lot of like, me and my girlfriend are both super into like goth stuff, Halloween, whatever. Like I'm all over the place,
Yeah.
which is funny. It's like I feel like I fit in with a lot of different people, but then other times I kind of also feel like I'm always a little off to the side.
Sure.
It's a weird experience. I don't know if that's misunderstood or not, but it's interesting.
I think it's you have so many different, well, we all have different facets of our personality. Yours are just very public because
Yeah.
they're visually, you see the tattoo everywhere. You see the long hair, you see these incredible bookshelves that you've curated. You're I know everybody is different on the inside, but there's some people when you turn on their channel, you really don't know who they are at all. It's kind of a vanilla presentation. Sometimes there's a background, sometimes there's not. You really only know anything about them by what they're saying. Now, I certainly wouldn't suggest that anybody should prejudge your talent on YouTube or your analysis of books or just your experience and reading based on tattoos or hair or whatever. Because look, I have tattoos too that you can't see them, but I got them.
Yeah.
I used to have super long hair. Yeah, the mullet was a thing, you guys. Absolutely. I'll show you some college photos. None of you guys will even believe it. If I could have hair like Jake's, I promise you that's exactly what I would be rocking out right now. But so yeah, maybe misunderstood isn't the word, but maybe generalized is closer, because if I didn't know you and I just flipped you on and didn't have the books behind you, I wouldn't know if you are a rock star. I wouldn't know if you're a tattoo artist. I wouldn't,
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't put you down as a PhD candidate,
No.
which I think is fair to me because,
Yeah.
again, you don't have a super vanilla look to what you're doing, and I love it. I mean, I've been a fan of your channel since day one. We're gonna get into that in a second, but while we're on the topic of your PhD and your physical training and all that, where did the competitive bodybuilding come from for you?
That came from, okay, so very brief background tangent that will make that answer make a lot more sense.
Sure.
We talked about how rare it is for like PhD people in the muscle growth strength realm. That has been Oh, when was that? I think the mid 2000s was like when that just kind of started. Like it's really new that
Yeah.
people have been really focused on that. And what's interesting about this field in particular is that now a lot of these people who have gone into science are people who they're into fitness first and then they get into, just like me, right? And then they get into the science part. And a lot of them also do stuff on social media. And so social media has a lot of pros and cons,
Yep.
especially fitness social media. It can be very toxic and very bad, but it can also be amazing in the sense that, like, you can literally DM the person who did this study and talk to them about it. And people are constantly doing podcasts talking about their work and talking about what they've seen success with their clients and all that kind of stuff. And so I saw people doing that, and that's part of what inspired me. That was part of the I'll go do my PhD,
Sure.
thought. But a lot of those people, I shouldn't say a lot, some of those people also compete in bodybuilding or powerlifting. And I was like, man, that looks cool. That looks fun. And one of my primary role models, someone I admire a lot, is a guy named Eric Helms,
Okay.
who was a bodybuilder first and foremost. And then he got really deep into science. He has multiple very successful companies, and just an awesome, awesome guy. And I'm very fortunate to call him a friend now. He's been on my committees in grad school. He's the best. And seeing him do that has been super inspirational for me, particularly talking about why he did it, right? Like, it's some people look at bodybuilding as like a really vain thing, like you're trying to look a certain way or whatever. And
Sure.
like there's a little bit of that, right? It feels cool to like, oh
Hmm.
wow, I can see all my muscles, or like that's cool.
Hmm.
But the biggest thing is the idea of going through that very purposeful, controlled hardship and what you learn about yourself and about life through the process. There's a guy named Alberto Nunez who said this a long time ago. He said the best thing about bodybuilding is that you learn things about yourself that would be undiscovered otherwise. And that's absolutely true. That when I've done it, it's like it's hard to describe. Um, it's
Well,
like this
it,
weird catharsis.
it actually leads me. I promise you, folks, we did not set up these questions in order, but Jake has absolutely led me into the question. So, what does training for a competition teach you that reading and academia don't?
Oh,
Because I think that that's sort of where you were going.
yeah, 100%. So I actually I've only competed. I did 2 shows, but I did them, a couple weeks apart or whatever,
Sure.
right? But I did the full contest prep diet actually once before back in 2020. I didn't compete because, a lot of things happened in
Sure.
2020.
Yeah.
The shows all got canceled. But I went through the process at least. And then here, that would have been what 2024 is when I actually did it and competed. And I've learned different things in each of the times, right? I think the first time it was very hard because I'd never done it before. And it's the feeling I got coming out of it was it's the strongest I can do anything kind of feeling. Like if I could do that, this job ain't stressful. I can do
Yeah.
this degree. I can, I had a fight with my girlfriend. We can get through it. It's fine. It's like it's just such a powerful feeling. Particularly in the sense of like, I don't need to like grit my teeth and white knuckle it through these hard things. I can just accept that it's hard and do it. And that actually makes it easier, funny enough, when you just sort of submit to a certain degree.
Sure.
That was a big thing that I learned. And then the second time, it was I had an easier time of it because I'd done it before. It was still hard, don't get me wrong, but not as hard as the first one. And the biggest lesson I got was like learning more about being present. I often find that I don't I don't just sit there and like reflect a whole lot. I'm getting better, but it's something I'm very purposefully working on. And I really noticed it because of that contest prep, where you get you get to this point where it's like you're just so you're like butter scraped over too much bread, if you will.
Very
Um,
thin.
very thin, and you're just mentally just tapped out, and you know you get to this point where there's like nothing in the way anymore of like really realizing how you're feeling, and you can't really hide your emotions very well anymore. You get really irritable and all this stuff,
Yeah.
and it really showed me those things. And then also, I was single the last time I did it. This time I would at the time would have been 4 years into the relationship. We lived together and all these things. And so like when I wasn't that pleasant to be around, she would let me know. Right. And like she would call me on a lot of stuff that I was doing or not doing. Right. And it was so helpful, right. To actually be in a place where I could see that. And in that same time, I found just an amazing therapist that I've been seeing ever since. And we've been working on that skill, other skills also, but like that's a big thing as well. And it's just like, it's one of the best lessons that I've learned. It's helped in every single aspect of life.
That's
Right.
awesome.
So I'm very
Physical,
grateful.
mental, emotional, spiritual, the whole thing. Well, I'm going to flip the question totally around. What has reading taught you that the gym never could?
I think empathy is a big one. Learning more about being able to put myself in someone else's shoes and perspective, and just thinking about Malazan was actually a big one for this, as I'm sure you can imagine. That it's never as simple as it seems from your perspective, is it? There's always more under the hood, and that's been a big lesson. I think some of the reflection stuff goes along with that too. Just learning a little bit more how to do that. But I think that's the biggest thing, is just experiencing life through other people's eyes. And then I go out in real life and somebody cuts me off in traffic and they're speeding because it's South Florida, and they're recklessly driving. And I used to, I would get upset before, but now I'm just like, man, who knows? Maybe their kid just got in a car wreck and they're trying to get to him, or who knows?
I totally agree with you. I particularly, you and I happen to be in a buddy read together with the Wars of Light and Shadow, and that happens to be, as you mentioned, Malazan one. Wars of Light and Shadow is another one where, at least I know for me, reading has taught me a tremendous amount about empathy. And you haven't quite got to Peril's Gate yet, have you?
I'm like 60 pages in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the second half of that book is going to bring out a lot of that theme, and you and I will be in our group discussion as usual. But I think when you think about the answer that you just shared with us, that second half of Peril's Gate by Janny Words is going to absolutely reinforce and cement, I think, your answer about empathy that you just had for that question. That's incredibly cool. By the way, Jake's channel, Nerd Level Rising, is listed in the description below. So obviously, if you're not a sub already, you need to go do that. I have, I don't know, 150 BookTube channels that I'm subscribed to. Unfortunately, I don't have a time to watch all of them, but I do watch every episode of Nerd Level Rising. And so that brings the question, Jake. It's called Nerd Level Rising. What does rising actually mean to you? When you came up with that title, what was the rising part?
I just wanted to get deeper into all this stuff. I wanted to be exposed to more things, learn more things, meet more people, have a bigger community of other nerds that I can talk to. That's really what all of it is. I think it's like a sense of progress. That's one of the things, like in life, that's like the most satisfying feeling to me, is like I'm moving forward towards something.
Sure.
And like, why not with BookTube also? Right?
Was it the first title you had in mind for your channel?
Was it? I think it might have been. It was just like, I was trying to think of stuff, and when like you're brainstorming and it just feels like it's like this cloudy, like there's nothing.
Yeah.
And then that was like one that just sort of, I think rising was the first thing that kind of came out of the ether. And I was like, I hope people don't think this is too much like Red Rising.
It never occurred to me until I asked you the question a minute ago. I never put Red Rising with Nerd Level Rising in my brain one time. So at least from this guy's point of view, no, not at all.
That's cool. I mean, I like Red Rising, don't get me wrong, but it's yeah. So I think that is at least the first like actual tangible idea. Yeah.
I think it's terrific. For all of it. I mean, it's talking about nerds, and of course our friend Bookborn comes on every time and says, "Hi nerds, how's it going?" Yep. The level is cool because we're starting somewhere, but you're talking about rising even further and beyond. And I think a lot of the literature that we read in this kind of genre on BookTube is very much rising in the way that we think think about that.
100%.
So when did you know that, because like me, I know you were a fan of BookTube before you started your channel. When did you know you wanted to talk about books publicly and not just read them privately?
Um, because I know what finally got me to do it was when John and Jacob started Town Square.
Hmm.
That's what finally got me to start. But I'd been thinking about it before then. I was just too scared to jump in. I'm
What
trying to
scared you
remember
about it?
exactly what it was. I think it was a what did scare me about it? I think it was I had this like fear isn't the right is fear the right word? I don't know. I think I was just insecure about like I'm trying to be a YouTuber.
Hmm.
That feels, you know what I mean? I was just like, oh, that's why don't I just start doing TikToks or whatever, right? Um, that I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I just mean that like I think that social media and all that kind of stuff is awesome. I just always like I don't think it's weird when people want to do that. But I just have this thing that I'm like, people are gonna think I'm weird for wanting to do it. I don't know why. I don't know where that thought came from. But
So
I
the
think that's
fear
what
was
it was.
almost of judgment for doing it in the
Yeah.
first place. Because there's
Yeah.
a lot of different kinds of fears when we talk about doing a YouTube channel. It could be, I don't know how the technology works. I don't know how to actually edit a video. I
Yeah.
don't know if my opinions in my brain will come out of my mouth in a coherent way. I don't know if I can add to the conversation. Haven't a million people already discussed this same book?
Yeah.
What am I bringing new to this? So I think that there's a laundry list of fears that somebody may have when thinking about doing something like this, but yours is unique. It's almost like being, who is this guy to be on YouTube? You know, what's up with him? Why does he think he
Yeah.
should be here?
Yeah. I think it's also it's mostly from like real life friends.
Okay,
I'm just like, I hope none of them ever find out that I do this. I'll be
sure.
mortified, right? But it's like they know. They're gonna find out, right?
Yeah.
Um, and guess what? I'm not mortified. It's fine. I was just being anxious for no reason. So
Well, but I think in fairness to you, though, anytime you try something totally new, particularly in this kind of little corner of booktube where we've got people that have been doing it for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and we know that people's attention spans are very limited these days. And if people are given a choice of watching somebody who's got 5 years of experience doing this versus somebody who's made one video before and they're still kind of in that nervous little bubble and they don't know what their channel is about yet, it can be a little bit nerve
sure.
inducing.
Yeah.
So I get that a little bit, but certainly I'm glad you took the plunge. I know that everybody who watches Nerd Level Rising is very glad you took the plunge.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
kudos to Talking Story, by the way, my brother in the South, John Minton and Jacob Minton, for coming up with this great idea for Town Square in the first place, because I think you're not the only person that has developed their own YouTube voice and their own YouTube channel from that, experiment.
Yeah, I owe a lot to those guys. I when we went to the Sun Eater Gala, that was like I was like the first thing I'm doing is I'm giving John a hug. That's the first thing I'm doing before I see anybody. Um, it was just they're I mean they're the best, right? I don't have to tell you that.
You didn't body slam him? You and
No,
Tom
I did
Orange
not.
didn't tag team on him and
No, no, maybe we should have. That'd be funny.
oh my God, I had to take a photo of that. Yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll Photoshop that into the little corner of this thumbnail. If
Yeah,
you and Tom Orange hoisting the two Talking Story hosts above your heads in a competition.
I love it.
So what kind of stories, at least from where you are right now, you're pursuing the PhD, you're doing the training, you're doing all that stuff. What kind of stories do you find yourself needing most right now in life?
That's a tough question to answer, man. I think that
I try to be thorough and I try to
yeah,
ask questions that you haven't been asked on every show you've
yeah.
ever showed up on. So what kind of stories do you feel like right now you need?
I think that what I need the most is something that completely transports me to a different place, and I feel like I'm getting something tangible out of it. So I'm a big Brandon Sanderson fan. I'm a big John Gwynn fan, Ryan Cahill. But these guys were like, it's much more accessible prose,
Mm-hmm.
much more simple story. I love that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I also really love Janie Wirtz and Steven Erikson and Stephen Donaldson and Gene Wolfe. And like, I've gotten really into those authors, especially this past year. And it's just, there's something about it that there's something about the prose, I think, especially, that I'm just immediately immersed. And it's so fun and enjoyable just to read the words on the page. Like it's just another layer of it. It's not better or worse. It's just different. And
It's extra.
It's extra. And then, you have these stories that like really stick with you after you're done. And the longer it sits in your brain, the more strongly you feel about it and the more you extract out of it. And I love that. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because you would think during a PhD you'd want simpler things.
Sure.
But I don't know. For whatever reason, that's just not the case. I'm really craving these things that make me think, that challenge me, that it's not just like a popcorn read all the time. Don't get me wrong, I want those too, right?
Yeah.
I like to bounce back and forth, but those are the things that I'm really, really excited about right now.
I love that, especially like you said, because it's not like you're not already studying. You're doing tons of academic work for a PhD. It does seem a little counterintuitive that you want challenging material, but I'm glad you're going for it because I think you're getting more out of the time you're spending reading, doing things that solve those needs for you. And,
Yeah.
You don't wind up going, well, I'm just only reading popcorn reads because I'm into this PhD and I'll save the tough stuff for later because life is short. We don't know when later's ever going to be. So I'm really, really glad you're doing it. And personally, on a personal note, I'm glad that you share my love for, the Erikson and the Wirtz and the Gene Wolfes and all of that, because not everybody does.
Yeah.
It's tricky. And, I'm this lit RPG guy and people give me, guff for spending so much time in popcorn stuff. I'm like, well, I'll tell you what, you go read Malazan and Wars of Light and Shadow every other month and you get back to me
Right.
on how simple lit RPG is. Okay. But,
can I ask you a question really quick?
Absolutely.
Have you read any Donaldson?
I have not. He's on the list.
I think you would really like it.
But not this year.
That's fair.
Yeah. My brain is taking a mandatory break since finishing The Crippled God a couple of days ago. And the only real epic series that I am going to commit to for 2026 is The Wars of Light and Shadow. We are 6 books of the 11 books in right now, and I'm loving that. And I want shorter books. I want some more standalone stuff. Malazan and that every other month is just
a lot.
It's a lot to keep in an ever shrinking brain of mine, I think. So is there a character in either science fiction or fantasy that feels uncomfortably close to who you really are?
Ooh, man. It's tough because I see aspects of myself in various people.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to be a duplicate.
Yeah.
But who are some characters that maybe you see some aspects of yourself and you go, oh, geez, I do that, or man, I think that, or yeah, that seems awfully close to IRL.
Yeah. I'm trying to not give you like a whole list. I think one of the biggest ones would be Hadrian from Sun Eater.
Okay.
That I think that there have been times in my life, and I'm much better now, but there have been times in my life where I just felt the world revolved around me, like most teenagers probably do.
Sure.
And, then you grow up and realize things are bigger than that, and that you need to sometimes do the hard thing, even if it's right. And you need to, all the lessons that he learns. And he has a flair for the melodramatic, and I think he's a sad boy at heart, and he's a romantic, and I think he's depressed a lot of the time. And I'm just like, yeah, I see a lot of this. I think part of why I like Light and Shadow so much is I see some of myself in Arathon, of like some of that almost self-destructive refusal to be perceived as selfish or non-empathetic, I guess. Like I'm not perfect at those things all the time by any means, but it's like uh there's almost like a piece of me that likes the idea of being a martyr for a good reason. And I'm like, I don't know if that's good, but like I think Arathon has some of that. Um it's and I guess not to bring down the show, but
Hmm.
part of why I like Donaldson so much is the way that he wrote the character of Covenant, that I think it's the best representation I've ever seen of somebody who is depressed, who they just want to be more depressed and they don't want to feel better. And they have to sort of work through that emotion.
Hmm.
And I think that that's something that I certainly relate to. And I just have never seen anybody write something that well. And then the way that that first trilogy just progresses and then concludes was just, it was so powerful. I'm certainly not like Covenant in a lot of other ways,
Sure.
but you know, I see some of that. Anyone who's read it, hopefully you know what I mean. I'm not like him in every
Yeah,
way,
yeah,
please.
yeah, I think they do, and I don't think they assume that you do. But you make a really interesting point about depression and not wanting to get out of it, because it's just been my experience that for many people, while they don't love being depressed and they don't like having depressive episodes, if you go through enough of them, it almost becomes a comfort zone. And there's very few things that are harder to do than to get out of your comfort zone. Even if the comfort zone is depressing and miserable, we will sometimes find ourselves, yeah, I'm depressed and I want to stay depressed because that's what I'm used to. I don't know what it's like to be happy 24/7. And that seems more uncomfortable to me than here in my cave of comfort, even though it is depressing. So I think your answer actually makes tons and tons of sense.
Yeah.
And I think if
It's,
any of you guys out there that have dealt with depression in your life, as I have too, um, you probably understand what Jake's talking about there.
yeah. Yeah.
I want to talk about identity and art for a second. And we're going to go back to books, but I brought it up early, some of the tattoo stuff that you've got going, because I don't know that anybody's ever asked you this on any streams before, but how do the tattoos fit into your identity? Are they memories of something special? Are they art? Are they rebellion? Are they something else entirely? Tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
what brought that on.
It's a little bit of all of it, I think.
Okay.
I remember I must have been, I don't know, 14 or 15. And I was always a fan of like metal music, right? And I just remember seeing these people who were covered head to toe. And I was just like, that's what I want. That was immediately from day one. That's what I wanted. And and some of that is rebellion, right? You want to look, part of why you get tattooed is so that people will look at you, right? Whether you want to admit it or not, that's part of it.
Okay.
And so it's very visible tattoos at
Mhm.
least. And so some of it is that. A lot of it has also been to like memories. Like I have a memorial portrait of my dog
Sure.
from my childhood, or I have the name of a friend who passed away, and you know, some things like that. I have a lot of stuff that's just stuff that I like. I have a Wheel of Time tattoo. I have a Malazan tattoo. I have a Sun Eater tattoo. I have a Dexter tattoo. You know, just stuff that I like. Some of it is just imagery that I like. I love Halloween. I have I have a huge haunted house in my ribs. I have a jack-o'-lantern and ghosts. I have, you know, just
Yeah.
it's just stuff that I think is cool, you know? I think a lot of people overthink their tattoos. Sometimes it's okay to just like how it looks.
I
Um,
totally agree with you.
yeah.
Mine are all Portal fantasies. Mine are
Awesome.
all like, I've got a half sleeve here, which is just all, one day I'll wear a tank this summer and I'll show the whole thing off.
Yeah.
But I'm a black and gray only kind of guy these days when it comes to tattoos. And
Yeah.
luckily, and I'll send you this guy's Instagram, who's my tattoo artist up here. It's blow away. I mean, it's just so good. But I'll tell you a funny story. I remember when I got my first tattoo and I didn't want to tell my parents because I thought they'd go crazy. And they didn't, but my mother says, "You've mutilated the body I made for you." And I was just like laughing my ass off the whole time. Then after she looked at it, she goes, "Actually, that's kind of cool. I like it. It's like a doorway going into these stars and
Yeah.
spaces beyond." And
That's
she
awesome.
got in. It was like the first 30 seconds she lost her mind. And then it was like, "Oh, let me see that a little bit closer. I'm gonna get my glasses on. I really like that." So
That's awesome.
that's very cool. So what's harder, finishing a brutal leg day or finishing a 1,000-page fantasy novel?
Oh, the leg day is harder.
Leg day's harder?
Leg day's harder. Yeah, I've come to dread it more and more the longer I've been lifting. It's just hard.
It is.
It's just hard.
So I started bodybuilding when I was, I want to say 19. I was a sophomore in college, and I did it because I was always the shortest kid in my class, and I think I weighed maybe a buck 15 when I graduated high school.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
mean, like, just no muscle, no nothing. And I watched all these girls dating all the athletes, and I was like, well,
Mm.
this is ridiculous. And I had no idea that I have kind of a natural body for bodybuilding, particularly upper body. So I, like you, through my 20s, was just absolutely full body all the time workout. Got a
Yeah.
little bit older. I was like, you know what really sucks? Leg day. Do you know what
Yeah.
I don't care about doing anymore ever again? Leg day. So leg day has been kind of off the table
it.
for me for a lot of time. But
Yeah.
you know, I look at this with the the YouTube camera stops it right about here.
Yeah, it's all you need.
So, if I'm walking around on pencil sticks, that's fine.
You're good. No one will know.
So okay, so we have it here officially, folks, from somebody who's both a acclaimed PhD candidate and a bodybuilder and a avid reader, that leg day is harder than finishing a 1,000-page fantasy novel. Do you think fantasy is escapism, or is it actually a way of learning to live, or is it both?
Ooh, I think it's both. It's there've been a lot of times where it feels like escapism or just pure entertainment, or let me just get away from whatever's going on and get into this story. But especially the last couple of years, it's been a lot more of like, what can I really get out of this thing? How can I grow? And I try not to get too deep into that, because if I just intellectualize it too much, it takes some of the fun out of it, and I don't want
Yeah.
that. So I try to be somewhere in the middle.
Enjoying the story, yet at the same time, kind of learning a little bit about what maybe the themes are and how
Yeah.
they impact you. And I think I've actually found too, the more I immerse myself into stories that are heavily thematic, like Wars of Light and Shadow or Malazan, it almost like you absorb it without even intellectualizing it, where
Yes.
you're reading it and you don't have to consciously think about empathy or some of these big themes of loss and grief or whatever, but your body gets it through your mind.
Yeah.
So no, I like that answer a lot. I want to talk a little bit about becoming who you are, is a little bit of the section that I've called this year. So when did you start Nerd Level Rising? Was it about a year and a half ago-ish? A year ago-ish?
Yeah, it was August 17th.
Okay.
That would have been what, 2024.
Yep. So
Yeah,
a little
about
under
a
a year and a half.
Yeah.
Very cool. What has surprised you the most about yourself when you started and since you've started?
What surprised me the most about myself? I think when I started, it was probably I was better at talking to the camera than I was expecting.
Cool.
I'm not trying to say I was amazing at it, but like I thought that I would have a lot more of the ums and the stuttering and this jumbling my words together and whatever. And I certainly have some of that, right? I still do, but it was smoother than I was expecting, at least.
Very cool.
So,
I agree.
Thanks. Yeah. Which some of that is like, I've had some practice talking to a camera before, and so that certainly
Sure.
helps. But what surprised me the most now? That's tricky. Maybe that I'm like starting to think a little bit more. How do I say this? Thinking a little bit more about like what works and what doesn't. And I want to be careful how I say this. Like I do want the channel to grow, right?
Mhm.
Like I have a like entrepreneurial mindset. I want it, I want the channel to get bigger. Who doesn't want ad revenue money or whatever, right?
Absolutely.
I think we'd be lying. I think everyone would be lying if they said we didn't care about it at all, right?
Well, I think that there's kind of like this false sense of, oh, I'm going to come across as opportunistic if I
Yeah.
want my channel to grow, or if I want to earn a few more dollars a month in ads, or if I want to pick up a brand sponsor. And the truth is that there's nothing wrong with that. If you're doing something and you're enjoying it and other people are enjoying it, you get to earn from it. It's not greedy. I mean, trust me, if you're somebody who's really greedy, they're not starting a BookTube channel.
No. No.
There's plenty of other things you could do with your time to generate far more income. This is a passion, but it's also a passion that can be, a little bit of a little side hustle, so to
Yeah.
speak, or just a little extra cash for, the bills that come up unexpectedly, or just a nice night out with your girlfriend or something like that. I mean, you're not
Yeah.
asking for the moon. So I
No.
think that what your answer, is, and I'll let you expound on it more, is being a little bit more aware of what you're putting out and when you're putting it out and how
Yeah.
you're putting it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's because some of it is purely like I don't need to be the best in the world at what I'm doing, but everything that I'm doing, I want to like be pretty good at it, right? Like I don't want to just go through the motions. I don't know. It just doesn't feel as satisfying to me.
Mhm.
So I'm like, well, how can I, make the product better just for my own satisfaction, let alone the viewers, of course, also, right? And then some of it is like just the feeling of progress and growth of like the quote unquote business side of that stuff. It's just fun, interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Creatively, it feels more fulfilling, I think, to do some of those things. But it also, the reason it feels surprising is because when I started the channel, I was like, it's gonna a year from now, if I have 50 subs, I'm gonna be stoked, right? And so my whole plan was just practice, put stuff out there, get used to doing it, feel a little more comfortable. And then like by the time anybody sees this, you'll be a couple years in and you'll be much better at it.
Yeah.
And that's not what happened. Not that the channel didn't blow up or anything, but like it's certainly a lot bigger than I would have expected at the time. Even now, like
Mhm.
it's a lot better than I would have thought. And so now I'm like, it's not a ton of people that care, but enough people care that like I want to make sure they're getting their time's worth, right? Like
Mhm.
they're spending some time is the most valuable commodity that we have, and they're spending some of that on watching me ramble about whatever. I want to try to give them, more for that.
Absolutely. And I do think there's something to be said. And I know I have some viewers that disagree with me vehemently about this, and that's okay. But one of the reasons I started my channel was purely because I watched Mike and I watched Philip, and I said to myself, not, oh, I think I can do that, or I think I can do it better than them. My thing was, I want to be friends with these guys. And if
Yeah.
I'm just a viewer, I'm one of thousands of people who watch their videos. And you know what? If Mike hearted a comment that I put, it was like it would make my day. And
Uh-huh.
I remember one time Philip was on a live stream, and I think it was clearly on somebody else's channel, because Philip is not the king of the live stream, monitoring chat, but he was on someone else's channel, and they had put my comment up on the screen. And I was so excited that Philip Chase was answering a question that I had, that I took a photo with my camera of the TV, texted it to my mom, who she was even excited about it for me.
That's
And
awesome.
and I had just said, I want to be friends with these people. And having a BookTube channel is a way in to do that if you're respectful and genuine and
Totally.
are, kind of like, team player is not the word, but a fan, somebody who can root on other channels as
Yes.
much as you can root on your own channel. I think, and I think you've noticed that too, going from talking stories, town square, to now it's like one of us, one of us, one of
I'm,
us,
I'm
right?
on for whom the bell tolls, guys. Like this is we did it.
Or as Alan from the Library of Alexandria says, that cable TV public access show Brian does. Yeah, absolutely. You
Yeah.
know, I want to ask you one more question. Then we're going to get to the segment that we always do. And folks, you know what that is if you've watched this channel. If this is your first time here, you're going to find out in a minute. But if you could put one book in the hands of every person watching this, what would it be and why?
Um, The first thing that came to mind is Curse
And
of the
don't
Mistwraith.
and don't say the magicians. I'm sorry. What
No,
what was
I
that?
won't say the magicians. The
Oh,
first thing that came to mind is Curse of the Mistwraith. I think, is it going to be overwhelming for some people? Sure. But I don't think it's nearly as complicated as people make it out to be. And I think that you get such a powerful story that also sets up this much bigger world that you can continue into if you want to. But it shows you what fantasy can really do. That it's this fantastical, magical thing that feels escapist, but it's so grounded in these realistic characters that you're learning something about yourself and about other people. Like it's just a great blend of all this stuff. And it's like, it's a representation also of like how good some of this writing is. And so that's what I'll say.
I think that's a really good answer. And I also think that having read as many books as I've read, I've never read anybody who writes exactly like Janie Wirtz does. There are people that write complex themes. There's a lot of, intricate threads that are weaving together. And, Malazin's a great example of that, even probably slightly even more epic in some regard,
Sure.
because there's just way more characters and way more locations and all of that stuff, way more cultures, yada, yada, yada. But I think that I really love your answer because it would give people a sense of something they've not read before, artistically, prose wise,
Yeah.
where, yes, we've seen themes, we've seen action, we've seen dialogue, but her specific writing style is really unique to her. And I just love that answer.
Thanks.
Very cool. We are at the point of the program, folks. If you've ever watched a single episode of anything I ever do here on BellTube, we have a segment called One for the Road. And that is genuinely when I come on and I, give you a thought I have of the day or something that I think maybe is worth thinking about or bearing in mind as you go about, your journey through the day. But when we do For Whom the Bell Tolls, I toss that baton to our guest. And sometimes I give them fair warning that they're doing it, which I did in this case. Other times they find out about it on the spot, but I did my best to not do that this time. Instead of me giving you my normal one for the road, I'm going to turn this one over to Jake. Jake, would you please give us a one for the road today?
Sure. So I wasn't sure how much background info I was going to have to give on this. And it turned out the conversation went through basically all of the channels, so I don't really have to. And this is actually a really nice little bookend that I can connect all the things. So one of my tattoos is the Baylet from Berserk. That I know not everybody watching this will have seen Berserk, but without spoilers, the Baylet is a magical artifact that is usually associated with a character named Griffith, who is like, he's complicated and he makes some choices, and a lot of people find that his choices are reprehensible, and it's because he's very ambitious. He wants his own kingdom. That's like the impetus for the story, really. And there's this has always stuck with me. I love Berserk to death. It's one of my favorite things. And a lot of people look at me sideways when I show them that was my choice for the tattoo I got for Berserk. But it's related to this idea of ambition and how there is a point that's too far, right? And I think that ties into my other piece of this, which is that, like, I think ambition is good and you can actually handle more than you think. Where, if you would have told me 10 years ago that I'd be reading Gene Wolfe and Janie Wirtz and Erickson, running a BookTube channel, doing a PhD, competing in bodybuilding, trying to get an academic job lined up, doing a personal training business, having a relationship, all at the same time, I would have laughed. I would have crumbled and laughed at you and, deteriorated into insanity. Like, it just wouldn't work. But you slowly, step by step, can kind of build your way there. And I think about it, it's like progressive overload in the gym, right? Like, you don't walk in and squat 300 pounds. You squat 100 pounds first, and then you can do 105 and then 110. And eventually you get there. And so I think that's my two-part one for the road is, one, if you have stuff that you want to do, you can probably get there if you stick with it, right? You surround yourself with the right people. You are persistent. you respond to setbacks, you know, in a forward moving way, right? And if you slowly, progressively get your way there, you can handle more stuff than you think and you can get there. However, there is a point that's too far and there's too many things and there is a cost to too much ambition, and not to be too much on the nose with the Berserk reference, but one of the primary costs I think for most people is the loss of relationships with people that they care about and connections with those people. And at the end of the day, one of the things I'm realizing far too late in life is that that's the whole point of life. And so go after the things that you want, slowly work your way there. You can handle more than you think, but don't go too far and sacrifice those things.
I love that. You know, when we do One for the Roads, a lot of the time they're theoretical and then sometimes they're just totally practical. And I think that that's an excellent combination of both, where, yeah, I don't really have much to add to that because I think Jake spoke eloquently and accurately. That is something that I would say too. So fabulous one for the road. Fabulous one for the road. Episode 29, For Whom the Bell Tolls. Jake, Nerd Level Rising. I want to thank you for coming on today. This is super fun. And I have to say, as you know, kind of the first time we've done this as a recording rather than a live, I enjoyed this tremendously because I got to spend the entire hour episode listening to you and not looking at comments and not trying to figure out what comments need to go in organically. This was a wonderful experience for me because you have a lot to say and I got to hear it all. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on because I know that this is going to be a great episode. My question is will you come back for volume 2 when when the bell tolls for you? Will you be a return guest?
Well, that'll be a year from now, right? Is how our scheduling is gone.
It could. You know what? If nobody else ever wants to come on the show again, you might be up next week. So
you say the word and I will be here. It would be an honor. And thank you so much for having me. I love talking to you anytime, but like, this is very, very cool. I appreciate it so much. I had a great time. Like, I love the comments. That's fun. But like, this is, like you said, you can just focus on the conversation.
Absolutely.
And this has been amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm just super proud of everything that you've done. You're inspirational to lots of people, including myself. So again,
back at you. Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Everybody, Jake's channel, Nerd Level Rising. It's listed in the description below. If you haven't checked it out yet, go check it out. When you get there, like this videos, subscribe to his channel. You're going to get just so much value out of doing it. He's a great human being. Jake, thanks everybody. This was episode 29. I'll be back much sooner than the breaks have been. We've got some fantastic guests lined up for you guys. We'll talk to you guys soon. Jake, thanks. Everybody, thanks for watching.